Yes, we are recording. Hello, YouTube, and hello, Heckle. Heckle is a little app. I'm guessing it's Australian, and a few people jump on. So I thought, you know what, I'll talk on Heckle because there aren't that many people. So it's more like I'm in a small little room, and it makes me somehow a little bit more comfortable to talk about things. Like things that don't seem like they are a big deal but then still affect you in a way that doesn't seem logical, I guess to me anyway. And so it then makes me think, okay, well, then when someone else is upset over something that seems trivial, then as well, we know that this is not the case for them, but perhaps this is how it feels. In the same way that today I have this after effect of being miserable over something small, and it somehow gets in the way of me wanting to do anything else. It becomes extremely real. But if it was someone else, I would feel sad that they're sad, but I can't feel the actual sadness itself. And so therefore it seems like it's less of a deal. It's almost like if someone is sad whilst your hand is in the fire, then you are feeling actual devastation as they're feeling sad. Whilst if you did not have your hand in the fire, never did have the hand in the fire, uh, then of course the overall pain gets reduced to just the witnessing of them being sad. This is a problem, I guess, when it comes to trying to talk to others about what we're going through, especially when that person, people, or group is removed some way from your situation, being at distance, culturally, linguistically, religiously, your general perspective on the planet. And I'm trying to think of an example. Say something like someone is devastated because their particular political party lost the election. There was an election landslide in Australia recently. And yet someone else who was rooting for the other side to win is overjoyed. And so I can imagine that it's harder to feel the devastation of the loss of the other side. Number one, when you're feeling the joy of the win of your side. But the fact that the other side lost also gives you joy. And of course, this idea can be transplanted to the tribalism that we see in the US, but we see it in many other countries as well. Um, I, of course, like many of you, possibly listen to hours and hours and hours and days and months and years of YouTube videos um, post the days when most things were read, as I did throughout my childhood, just read everything I could. I was very lucky. My mum read me novels when I was 3. By the time I was 4, I started continuing reading those novels on my own. By 6, I was reading the encyclopedia. And I was very grateful for my mum to have purchased a whole bundle of encyclopedia. And that was a time before Google, before Encarta, before CDs. And I would just sit there and read chapter after chapter. And one of the things I can never forget is that in the Encyclopedia Britannica, it wasn't Britannica, it was World Book Encyclopedia, I apologize. It was about 1988, 1989. And I was reading and I got up to, I think it was H. And there was a, no, it wasn't H. I can't remember what it was, maybe T under technology. And the car of the future was the Honda Odyssey. Now, if anyone is now around today in 2025, then the Honda Odyssey 20 years ago was a piece of crap. Sorry to anyone who owns a Honda Odyssey. I don't mean it in the sense that it's not a great car, but it is something that you wouldn't look twice at in the sense that it's not futuristic. But I specifically remember that it was in the encyclopedia that and it looked so futuristic. The fact that the car had curves and it seemed so glossy was very unusual. It did look futuristic back in the day, that's right. And so for anyone who remembers those type of things, it takes away from the joy in some degree that younger people have when they see something that's futuristic today. It's still exciting in some respect, but we have the lived experience of seeing something futuristic from the reverse end, in other words, from a different perspective in time, no longer having that effect. And so it destroys not your particular belief in the Honda Odyssey being futuristic itself. It destroys in part your belief that something that looks futuristic has the quality of being futuristic, because you almost know that this concept of what futuristic means is almost irrelevant if you live long enough. So it takes it away from anything else that's coming new, and it sort of starts to make you, to some degree, more cynical, or maybe less excited about things, or about certain things. I feel that way about, personally, I feel that way about elections, and about where countries seem to go. And the Tangara trains, Michael Loud has joined us on Heckle, and he says he remembers when Tangara trains looked space age when they came out in 1988. Yes, I remember that. I was 7 years old, and it was the biggest deal in the world. And now, if anyone catches a train, you wouldn't look at them twice. And they're the trains that you have to get on because you need to get to work or get to university. And I was catching the train for 2 years, the Tangara, recently. And I remember people squashed up against each other. It's almost an incubator for every virus you want. And then, of course, you'll always get 1 in 10 people who decide to just cough everywhere, not wear a mask. Okay, you don't want to wear a mask, that's fine, but then they cough everywhere and cough on you. And I just think it's lovely. It's just wonderful. What do you do? So today, actually, I was going to do some more study because I've been studying like mad. But I was a bit down. Premier Barry Unsworth launched it at Rockdale. He was our local member. There you go. I didn't know that. Michael Loud on Heckle is actually someone who's been around long enough and has a good enough memory, and also perceives quite a number of things to remember them in the first place, so that he can share those things. And it's fun to watch because the older I get, there are less and less people who have been around long enough who can tell me these things that help change my perspective on those as well. And Rockdale has changed. Wow. Talk about demographic shift. I was actually quite down today, I'll be honest. And I thought I would give up studying for the last 30 minutes before going to sleep and talk to you all, or to Michael Loud, and those on YouTube once this goes up, about the... I was surprised at how down I got at the fact that I didn't make the interview today. I was auditioned today to become a teacher at one of Australia's top universities. It was a good outcome considering my lack of experience. So it's the things I'm going to say now are going to seem like not a big deal. It's different though when I experience them for some reason. This is something I can't yet quantify and I can't yet transmit, which I think most of us are in that similar situation. I was logically, I can see, yes, they were so happy with how I performed that they said, here is the actual material, study the material and come back because we would love to have you come back. Now, this is actually an amazing compliment if you look at it from the perspective of someone who rocks up who's not sufficiently educated enough in that topic to teach it, and yet is invited to come back based upon the rest of those skills at such a university. So you got to, you try to think of the positives, right? And people will say, think of the positives, etc. But for some reason, I was so down because I prepared so much for it that I could only half think on the paper that I'm about to get published with my professor, and I'm trying to work on it, and I just couldn't work on it because I was so down at the fact that I didn't succeed at this role. But logically, it makes no sense because performing at a role is taking a snapshot of your ability at a certain point in time. My ability at this point in time is here. The requirement is here, or wherever. I don't know the distance, right? So it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal, and I can't explain why it's a big deal. Maybe a psychologist could help, but it does bring back a lot of memories, and it does make you think that you, for an instant, are possibly not worthy. So you have to go back and remember, hold on a second, I won a freaking scholarship. I've got all of these amazing marks from professors. Over and over, people saying, rarely do I see work like this, or I have never seen anyone solve it this way, or the other professor just yesterday telling me that I was able to solve something he hadn't thought of. And yet I have to try and desperately remind myself of those achievements to try and combat not making a job which I shouldn't have had. So where does this work? Are we so frail psychologically as humans that when we fail to meet something, even if we should have known that we weren't going to make it, that then destroys our whole perception of ourselves? And if you were aspiring to succeed, Michael Out says, if you aspire to succeed and then you're denied the opportunity, it can feel like a come down despite the logic. Exactly. So there's this dimension that logic cannot, for which it cannot compensate. And I think of this particular instance, it's reversed. But in general, I think of this when I hear constantly human beings argue, whether it's the American political landscape, or whether it's within specific ideologies that compete, that maybe are not necessarily aligned directly with the political tribes, or when you see, for example, the difference between the reporting on what I call entertainment TV, being 7, 9, and 10, ones where they make money from advertising, versus channels like ABC and SBS, which have a reduced or have a different audience, number one, but number two, have a reduced dependency on advertising, especially with ABC. And you'll see a completely different type of reporting. And it's easy for someone not in that position to say that something is bullshit, something is that. I was seeing on Twitter yesterday, or X, whatever you call it, where someone was saying, oh, the Vatican is just a kingdom that makes money. And I don't, my opinion is much more high. I would say that it's a higher dimensional construct. It's more than that, but in one dimension it is that. Michael Lauder's watching 7:30, which is a show on ABC, which gives a breakdown of the election aftermath. This is also quite fascinating when people come out after the election and talk about why their own side lost. They don't do it before the election. And I wonder if it's because they're rationalizing, in other words, coming up with the reason they believe to have been true all along, or they were afraid to give the reason beforehand. Now, the reason I don't think it's the second one is because when people come up with these reasons, they all tend to be different. It is an interesting result. Yes, my personal views, of course, is that I'm happy only because my my views on Dutton are not very good. But I come from a family where some people love the person, which I find hard to actually understand at all. It'd be similar, I guess, in America if one brother supports Trump and the other one supported Kamala Harris or something like that. And it's an amazing phenomenon that I witness where someone who is articulate and intelligent can come up with a completely different view, right? Which then makes you think, well, then how am I coming up with my own view? Is more to the result than the obvious headline. Okay, please feel free to share your points on that. Let me just pause the YouTube video. Yeah, one of the fears that I had today, it was irrational. It was, oh no, the examiners are going to realize that I'm in over my head with teaching this particular course. And somehow that's going to translate as a rumor across the whole uni that I don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to lose my PhD scholarship, which is insane because there's so much evidence to the contrary, which is why I got the scholarship in the first place. Ah, the preference flows. Yes, see, the differences in Australia, talking about voting, is that our voting is compulsory. Uh, Having said that, I am aware of a lot of people who walk in, just put in a paper and walk out. But even those ones go into the preference system. Now, I'm not exactly sure how the preferences work, but it's a way of funneling down those who received enough votes but didn't receive enough to win anything. It allows those particular votes to be passed down to the people who are remaining, which gives them an extra boost. And whether that boost is justified or whether the people who would have voted for some party that didn't get in, whose votes went to this person, would they have wanted that? This is interesting. It means that no votes are wasted. Interesting. Yes. So you can get this accelerated effect of winning um, from one party by other people, even those who didn't put in an actual vote. Anyway, I might end the YouTube video here because the point that I wanted to get there was that I'm very down. But I acknowledge that this is normal. Agreed. And that moving on allows somehow the emotional aspect of this situation to bubble down and become incongruence with the logical understanding of the situation, which is that my capacity might be exemplary in some cases, but also finite, which means it is limited. Which means if I broaden where I want to apply my capacity, uh, most of the time it will not be enough in every other domain. So, I may not be a good runner, a good cyclist, a good motorbike rider, a good diver, a good everything, right? Apart from that which we put our mind to. And yeah, that changes over time too, as we've seen. I was looking back at the years as a DJ and all of the CDs I sold at the time, and how I got onto radio and my CDs were playing throughout the shopping malls, and how at halftime at a massive football game they were playing one of my mixes, and all of that's gone to dust. You wouldn't know it, and those who are the age I was at the time couldn't care less. And if you look on YouTube now, there's no CDs, and the new tech that's out there allows certain people to be better than I could have ever dreamed. But even though it turned to dust, the knowledge I gained from that about myself, my ability to drive, to understand what it's like to then slowly but surely have your talent recognized, has moved across into the mathematics world. And so even though I'm still at the bottom, um, it is enough to recognize that I can have patience. Excuse me, even though there's less time that I have left on this planet, there's still enough time, hopefully, that if I don't make any more errors in judgment, or limited errors in judgment, then I will be able to become acknowledged for future accomplishments, which I can achieve if I continue to work very hard and not be too derailed by little roadblocks and emotional setbacks as today. I will love you and leave you on YouTube. Until next time, take one smack at a time.